All right, before we move on to comorbidity and prevalence, we're going to do something very fun here. What I want you to do is to take a look at some videos and to see if you can identify the personality disorder, which the symptoms most closely portray. And this first one that we're going to look at is not an authentic case. So, but what I want you to do here, what I really advise you to do is watch the video, and you can watch it as many times as you want, but pause after the video. Pause the recording and go through your notes carefully and see if you can get the answer to each one correct before you hear the answer, right? Because you can use your notes this time, but you're not going to be able to on the test. And you really, like I said, you really need to take the whole big picture into account. All of your notes. You really work those into your head about the different personality disorders that you can tease. Some of these have overlapping symptoms apart by the time we get to the final exam in this class. All right, so like I said, this first one is the only one where it's not an authentic case, but it's an easy one to start with. So here goes.
Come on, babies, work with me, people, all right. Show me love. Great, baby, yeah! Oh, behave.
All right, so this is actually a particularly easy one because the symptoms are literally spelled out for you, right? And the answer to this one is histrionic personality disorder. The symptoms were literally spelled out for you, but they're not going to be anymore. So what I want you to do with this next one, okay, is I want you, it's going to be really important that you write down the symptoms. So watch it, go through your notes, see what you think it is, write down as many symptoms as you can find in it, in the clip for that. But usually people come up with more than one when they watch possibility, when they watch this next one. It's a great example of how you have to take the whole big picture into account. And so I want you to write down the symptoms that you know there's evidence of in this clip. And for if you come up with two different possible disorders for each of them and see which one it captures the biggest picture of, okay? Because there's only one right answer. And here we go.
I don't know really who I am. I'm trying to find out. I know that I'm someone that cares about people. And at moments when I have clarity in my head, I want to do something with my life. Take all the energy that I spend being unhappy and using self-destructive methods for coping. You know, I want to take that energy and do something productive. But after that, it just gets all black and tangled. Confused with who you are and what you think you are. It doesn't matter if they're actually leaving. We can be at a store and I lose track of them. I can't see them anymore. And I absolutely just flip out. I can't breathe. I can't be around people. I mean, I hate crowds. Crowds just freak me out. And if I lose the person I'm with, then it just is compounded by 100,000. And then when I find them, I'm not very nice. I'm, where the hell were you? And all sorts of profanities. And then once I calm down, I apologize and realize I was being irrational, but couldn't see that in the moment.
All right. So this client who generously agreed to be on videotape has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And we're going to compare more than answers now. We're also going to compare our symptom lists. Okay, so let's see how closely yours matches this one. The first symptom that's really apparent in this video is that erratic sense of self. So she doesn't have a stable sense of identity in who she is, what her values are, where she's going in life and such. The second one is the abandonment issues, right? Remember, abandonment issues are really big with borderline personality. And she talks about the fact of just being abandoned at the mall by her friends. And the third one is the swinging extreme emotions. So when she does finally find her friends again, she talks about the fact that she wails into them and uses some obscene language even. So those extreme swinging emotions, borderline personality being the answer to that one. And now we're going to try our next one. This one, by the way, is an enactment. It is a real case, but it's an enactment. And the arm that you don't see here, the guy has a cast on his other arm.
Never see anybody carrying that many books or studying to be a doctor.
Yeah, well, in this case, it's law school.
Well, those aren't law books.
No, these are for everything else. Is there any chance I can get you to help me carry these to my car? I'm basically helpless with this cast.
Well, okay. But if I need any legal advice, you only want.
Deal. Just, over here. I hope this isn't going to make you late for class.
No.
Put them on the floor right there.
All right. And the answer to this one is antisocial personality. You see, he knocks her out. He first is very manipulative in getting her to his vehicle. And then when she bends over, he knocks her out and pushes her the rest of the way into the vehicle. And this is a real case. Some of you might know that this was a case of Ted Bundy, who preyed on a lot of college women. Okay, and would get their sympathy in this very manipulative way of needing help. And, was very successful. And this is a particularly interesting case. Sometimes people say, well, wait a minute, the fact that they're hurting somebody without a concern for that person's rights, if that means that they have a personality disorder, couldn't they claim the insanity defense? No. Actually, antisocial personality disorder, they know what they're doing is wrong. They are very aware of what they're doing, and it is premeditated, thought out. Obviously, Ted Bundy went to a lot of trouble thinking this out and coming up with a plan and wearing a cast even though he didn't have a broken arm and so on. So people cannot claim an insanity defense from this personality disorder. In fact, insane is not even a psychological term. It is, in fact, a legal term. And what they mean by insane is that somebody is not aware of what they are doing. People who are have antisocial personality disorder are aware of what they're doing. So let's move on to our next one now. Oops, here we go.
Did you see that?
See what?
The police. They followed me.
There weren't any police. What do you want? Sir, who are you here to see?
No.
Sir, what do you want? Do you have an appointment?
I don't know. Do you have one for me? Look, if you're going to use that, then you better make sure they're not listening.
Okay, and what we have here is paranoid personality disorder. Paranoid. I do want you to know that in this particular case, there were two cameras. There was one that was facing her desk, which there was another entrance over on that side, but also one that was facing him. And so with some editing, they got a really nice clip of this. But what I want you to know is that there really were policemen in the hallway, but they were not coming after that guy. They were there for another reason. The guy automatically assumed, because he suffers from paranoid personality disorder, that they were after him. We also see some kind of schizotypo symptoms in here, just a little bit, in that disorganized kind of speech. But we see yet another paranoid. So very important to write down these symptoms and see where do you get the biggest picture, because we see the biggest picture come through with paranoid. Remember that with schizotypal, they might have some odd beliefs, but they're not of a paranoid nature. They're more of a magical thinking kind of nature. Okay, and another symptom of paranoid that we see in here is this fear of the technology of the telephone, right? He's afraid of them collecting information or whatever with the telephone. This next one is a really interesting one. What we are going to look at here. So we're going to look at a couple of videotapes of the case of Charles Manson. And you're probably familiar with Charles Manson, and he is in prison now. And before he went in prison, there's a picture of what he looked like. There's a picture of what he looks like now in prison over on the right-hand side. And one thing, very important to write down your symptoms now, because two different disorders are prevalent in the two clips I'm going to run. I'm going to run them back to back. So as soon as I get done with one, I'm going to run the other. I'm not going to tell you any answers until we run both. So go ahead and run them both through, okay, as many times as you need to list your symptoms for the two that you think he was diagnosed with, okay? And here's the first of the two videos. Notice that the quality here is really, really poor. Poor audio. It's going to be hard to catch at times. You're going to want to probably listen to these twice in order to catch everything in parts of them. And really bad quality as far as matching the video and the audio, but really still very interesting. You're going to want to watch these.
What do you want to call me a murderer for? I've never killed anyone. I don't need to kill anyone. I think it. I have it here.
From your words, as Mr. Emmons quotes them in this book, it's clear that you were guilty of murder, and yet he says in all his conversations with you, he never heard you express remorse. Have you never felt it?
Remorse for what? You people have done everything in the world to me. Doesn't that give me equal right? I can do anything I want to you people at any time I want to, because that's what you've done to me. If you spit in my face and smack me in the mouth and throw me in solitary confinement for nothing, what do you think's going to happen when I get out of here? Guilty. I wouldn't do anything that I felt guilty about.
You don't feel guilty at all?
There's no need to feel guilty. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of. Maybe I haven't done enough. I might be ashamed of that, for not doing enough, for not giving enough, for not being more perceptive, for not being aware enough, for not understanding, for being stupid. Maybe I should have killed.
So these are real interviews with him in prison. We're moving right on to the second one.
I want to go off and go to work for. Work for what? Money? I got all the money in the world. I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy. I decide who does what and where they do it at. What am I going to run around and act like I'm some teeny bopper somewhere for somebody else's money? I make the money, man. I roll the nickels. The game is mine. I deal the cards. I don't break laws. I make laws. I'm the lawmaker. I'm the one that lays the track down. They drive the train. I lay the track. I make the law. If I power to control, I'm your king of this whole planet. I'm going to rule this whole world through that law. I'm the Pope. I'm 10 times.
All right, so 2 answers to this one. Charles Manson has been diagnosed as having 2 different personality disorders. And the first one is antisocial, right? So antisocial personality disorder. And we see that as far as symptoms, total disregard for the rights of others. And no sense of remorse. So they asked him, do you feel bad about it? No sense of remorse. Okay. What is the other one? The other one is narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, and let's compare your symptom lists now. We've got that grandiose self-concept. Remember, he says things like, I make the laws, right? I'm the king. I'm the Pope. Goes on and on and on about that at different times, that in ages that you see while he was in prison. We also have no empathy for others, and that really strong sense of entitlement. He was actually thrown in prison for some less major crimes like breaking and entering and such when he was younger. So he was in prison once when he was younger. And he comes out and he says, what do you expect? You throw me in prison, then what do you expect when I get out? Of course I'm going to go and have people murdered. Okay. All right. So he feels a sense of entitlement. Now, look at this. He's got 2 different personality disorders. How common is that? Well, first off, what is this called? This is called comorbidity, and it's actually quite common. In fact, more than 50% of people who have a clinical or personality disorder have more than one disorder. And the reason for that is that once you have one disorder, you are more vulnerable to having another disorder. Now, there are some particular, you might say, bedmates that are more common than others. So one of them, for instance, is seeing OCD. So that's not the personality disorder, but the clinical disorder, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, with Tourette's syndrome. Those 2 oftentimes appear together. Not always, but often. Okay. And in this extreme case, it's not unusual that we see both antisocial and narcissism. In fact, although we didn't see evidence in the little video clip that we saw of the Ted Bundy case, narcissism was also one of his diagnoses. So comorbidity means having more than one personality disorder or clinical disorder, or any combination. So more than one disorder. Okay. Now, as far as prevalence, I don't want you to memorize all of these. I just want you to see that they're not that common. Okay, but I do want you to know the lowest and the highest. So which of the personality disorders here is seen the least frequently? And that is narcissism. Okay, and which one do we see the most? And you see that that is obsessive compulsive personality disorder, OCPD. Okay. Okay, so this is a home stretch, but I really want everybody to do really well on the final exam. And I don't want you to get these personality disorders tangled up with each other just because there's overlapping symptoms. And one of the things that we found really helps students is practice. So what I'm posting for you on Blackboard under handouts is a totally free set of practice case studies. So you read the case study and remember to really, really study your notes first before you do the case studies, before you try them. Okay, and then make sure that you get these right more than once before you move on to the test. Okay. And of course, the final thing in this class, you'll be taking the final exam.